Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits, where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us to unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets to effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Hey there, friends. I am so excited to share with you this next conversation with Zac Brown, founder and CEO, Nonprofits HQ Inc. This conversation, I'm going to say, took flight. Zac shares his insights on building a startup and how he creates a collaborative culture within his team and where he goes to recharge. His answer to that question might surprise you, or who knows, it might actually resonate with you, or do a little bit of both. Have a listen to my conversation with Zac with Nonprofits HQ. And a huge shout out of gratitude to this season's podcast sponsors. Thank you to Fundraising Academy at National University, Nonprofits HQ, thanks Zac, and also Chazen and Company. Well, hey there, Zac. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing all right. How are you, Jarrett?
I'm doing pretty good. I love that we're connecting here. And I must say thank you, because when you and I connected, gosh, it must be, I feel like 6 months ago now. Time flies really fast, but I feel like we just connected out of the gate. I love what you're up to. Thrilled to have you in Nonprofits HQ as a supporter of this season. So again, shout out and gratitude for that. I would love to jump in, Zac. A couple of questions that I like to ask all of my guests is, when people see you out in the world, they exchange interactions with you, have conversations. What are some of the names you go by, right? Like, how do people know you in this big, bold world that you're living in?
Yeah, definitely. So you through your life and your career, you come up with people call you various different things, some of them amazing, some of them a little less amazing. And I've definitely had my share of those, but one of the kind of new ones that I was like, oh wow, I was like super proud when I heard this. It was somebody that I had never met before, local here to San Antonio. They were in the same building. They were going to another office, but in the same building as ours. And we met at the elevator and we were chatting, and it got to the point where like we were talking about what we do, and they were like, oh, you're Zac, you're the nonprofit guy. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I'm the nonprofit guy now. I will take that name any day. And I was like, I'm proud of this, because that really shows that, as we position our company and position the work that we're doing in the nonprofit space, that it's actually kind of starting to add value and starting to add to our reputation, which was super cool. But so there's the nonprofit guy, which is really cool.
That's cool.
CEO is the official title. That is an interesting role and an interesting title. Son, brother, friend, yeah.
Yeah. Nonprofit guy, badge of honor, right? Especially coming from the nonprofit nerd. I would feel for you like, okay, I've made it. People know exactly who I am, what I'm doing, and what I'm up to in this world. That had to feel pretty cool.
I actually, immediately after that conversation, I texted my mom and I was like, someone I didn't know just called me the nonprofit guy. This is so cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Well, you wear a lot of hats, Zac. And when I met you, you were living in Phoenix. You just referenced living in San Antonio. So tell us about the hats you wear and maybe even this most recent move, what that's looked like for you.
Yeah, definitely. So, we are an early stage startup. We're a small team, which means everybody wears literally every hat. We have titles because we need them for organization, but even just beyond so titles give you a set of responsibility or accountability for your part of the organization. We all kind of wear all of them, right? So you might come in one day, I'll be writing code one day, I'll be doing sales calls or demos another day, I'll be vacuuming the office floor because we're messy people sometimes, and it all just kind of goes into everybody doing whatever it takes to keep us sane while we're achieving our goals. And so, yeah, like basically, I would say the one hat, the giant hat would just be startup. And that's the hat that we all wear, building this product, adding value to our customers, and really amplifying impact with our new line of products that are coming out. We've got a tangible thing that's coming out as well to help with giving, and like a lot of really new cool product lines coming. And we're excited about that, but that means everybody's got to be all in on whatever it takes to get there. And we're blessed to have a team that's able to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of hats, right? You also mentioned, staying sane and startup. Does startup and sane, like, is that possible? Like, is it possible to maintain sanity while also building a startup organization business?
It's hard, but if you're disciplined in it, you can. So like for me, if there's something on my plate, and this is something that I have to grow and work through, right? If there's something that I need to get done, it doesn't matter if I try to disconnect or take a break. That's where my brain is. What's next? How are we moving forward? And that's a challenge when you're trying to stay sane and also trying to move quickly in the right direction. And so, but if you can implement these things, like our COO Alberto Carrasco, he is very good at blocking my calendar and like, nope, it's break time. You're going to go take a break. Like you're getting grumpy and you're being kind of a jerk, Zac. You need to take a day and just like recover. And so we're really good at kind of keeping each other accountable, because essentially, like if one of us burns out, like that's very very damaging to what we're trying to do and to our goals, right? We're at a stage where everybody has a massive impact, whether that's a positive or a negative impact, and we need to make sure we take care of ourselves so we could make that a positive impact on the organization we're building and the type of value we want to add to the industry.
Wow, I think we all need a COO like that, like someone that's like, I think you need a granola bar. You're acting kind of grumpy right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Well,
it takes trust. It takes trust in the team to be able to have those conversations. Like,
right.
I have to trust that he's coming from the right place, and he almost always is. And he has to trust that it's a safe place where if I'm being a jerk, he can tell me that I'm being a jerk and I need to step back. Like, you have to have that trust and that safety, especially on a team our size.
How did you build that culture? We have questions to go through in this conversation, but I also love where we're going is, building that culture out to validate what's happening, right? Allow that transparency, build that trust. How have you done that? And it's a small team, right? But like, how did you build these teammates and the surroundings to be able to foster that?
Definitely. And so it's a little more challenging and also easier the smaller your team is to create that type of culture. So we did kind of have the advantage of being a small team. Like, I've worked in a lot of different industries at different companies, large and small, worked in the nonprofit space. And one of the things that was tough is, they all started with these ideals or these ideas on how culture should work, but you didn't always find a safe place to speak. And that got me in trouble a lot, because even if it's not a safe place to speak, I'm still going to speak. And, you had this, and you would have all these environments that were very like businessy driven, but they were just awful for the people working in those spaces. And so I always told myself, when I start my company, because I knew that's what I was going to do, that we are going to create this environment or this culture where people can safely speak. We work in teams because we all think differently, we all have different experiences, we all have a different path forward, and we work together to put all of that in the same spot and find the most ideal path forward for us now. And so you have to be able to do that, be biased towards action, figure out what the next step is quickly, and do it. And I think you have to bring that into your interview process. You have to bring that into everything, whether it's a one-on-one meeting, whether it's a stand-up or a product org meeting, or whatever that is. You have to have that safety and encourage that safety throughout. Some of our people, they didn't come from that. A lot of our people don't come from that, right? So it takes some work to kind of get used to that. If something is dumb or something doesn't make sense, just because my title starts with a C doesn't mean you should blindly follow it. Tell us why it's dumb. Tell us why it doesn't make sense. Let's figure out how to move forward.
That is so refreshing. It is not something I hear often. I'm very similar with you, right? Like I will speak up, even if it's like, no, you're not really supposed to speak up at this time. But one of the big things I noticed on your website at Nonprofits HQ are your company values, and there's several of them listed there. I loved all of them, and it really comes down to one sentence, and that sentence is to do good every day. How did you create that? Like, how did you come up with that? How do you live that throughout the culture that you just spoke of? And then as we talk about overall wellness in the sector, how does that show up to do good every day, not only for the clients and the business you're starting, but for yourself as the CEO and the team that you have?
Definitely, yeah. So do good every day. We actually spent a considerable amount of time, and some people have told us we spent way too much time on that. It's not that important right now, but it really is because it's at the core of what we do. Right, our software is meant to amplify impact for people who dedicate their lives to doing good. They should have equitable access to these tools to really amplify their impact in their communities. Right. So we're starting with the entire reason our company exists, the entire reason our product exists is because people are doing good. So how could we sit there and say, this is what we're doing, we're affecting this industry, and not live by that same guiding light, that same principle? And the way we kind of surface that through our organization and stuff, all of our team members volunteer at a nonprofit at least once a month, and it's paid time, right? And including us, right? It's not necessarily a nonprofit that is buying our software either. It's an organization in the community that's doing something that needs help. It's the point isn't to grow our sales channels. The point is to actually actively contribute to positive impact in our communities. And so that's why we've intentionally left like that specific volunteer program. We've intentionally left it wide open. Pick an organization that you like, pick an organization that you are excited to support, and go support them. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Right. So it's not just about building and selling, it's about actually living that do good lifestyle. And that's at the core of everything that we do.
That is so cool. And I hear a lot of companies have put that into place, but I rarely hear employees putting that into action, right? It's like, when am I going to fit this volunteer day in? Or when are we going to get the entire team to go and do that? One thing I've seen your team do, Zac, is watch movies together, like in a boardroom, right? And I think I've seen laptops in front of you as well. You're still got your sleeves rolled up, doing everything you can to continue to do good every day. How, besides the movies, what else do you and your team do to, maintain this balance of all of the good you're doing in this world?
Definitely. Yeah. So like it doesn't matter how much good you do, work is going to be work, and you have to connect with each other outside of the scope of delivering a ticket or meeting a projection or whatever that is. And so like those movie nights are a great example of that, right? Whoever happens to be in the building is welcome, and we grab some beers, we grab some food, and we just watch whatever movie. There's usually some like back and forth on what that movie is, right? But we usually settle on something. And I've sat through some pretty boring movies, but it's not necessarily about the movie, right? It's about the time you're spending with your team and getting to know them outside of that. We also do like, your standard happy hours, and we do quarterly team builder exercises to understand our personalities and how we work together. And that was actually, this last team builder that we did was facilitated by a good friend of mine. And it was a really cool exercise, and it's something that I hadn't seen before. Basically, she asked us to plan a trip to the beach, right? So we took a little personality assessment, and the way people scored on that wasn't completely surprising. Like there were personalities that matched mine well, there were personalities that matched other groups well. And so we split into teams based on those personalities, and the task was to plan a trip to the beach. And so my team is like, okay, well, we don't need to bring like a beach tent or anything, right? Because there's going to be a restaurant. And so we don't have to get in the sand. So we're not going to get in the water. So we don't need beach clothes. We could use some sunblock, but there's going to be air conditioning, right? We need to make sure we have an active internet connection. And we probably should make a hotel reservation. And then the other side, the other team, they're going to have a much better time than we are at the beach, by the way. And the other side, they were talking about the flavors of the drinks they were going to bring and the snacks, and like this very granular, detailed, like fun way of planning a beach. And that was crazy because what that highlighted was the like contrast the huge contrast between the different personalities that make up an organization, that make up a team, but you know how to harness those, or how to put those together to figure out what it is you're doing, because we all have the same goals, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get there the same way, right?
Right.
We're all going to end up at the beach, but we're going to do different things to plan it. We're going to do different things along the way to make sure we get that, and you need to make sure that you give your people space to succeed in their own way. And I think that was the biggest highlight out of that. It was like we all have these like crazy different personalities, we think about things crazy in different directions, but ultimately we get where we're trying to go.
That sounds like a really cool experience and experiment. Your group sounds like we're going to the beach club, surf club, everything's there, right? We're just going to pay the bill and we're going to have a great time. The other group was, creating signature cocktails. And
Yep.
you're right. It takes everyone to come together to create that magnificent, finish line or final product, whatever it is. Since you mentioned beach, I'm really curious about what you, Zac, do for self-care, relaxation. There's been this age-old, I don't know, call it a survey or a question of like, are you a beach or are you a mountain person? So I'm really curious, regardless, beach or mountain, like what do you do for self-care, relaxation, back to that sanity? Like, how do you balance all of that?
Definitely. So beach or mountain, it's going to be neither for me.
Okay.
Absolutely. So like I've always been very like nerdy like my entire life. So like I'll have fun at the beach, grab a margarita in my MacBook, whatever. I don't like public waters, so I don't get in the water. Um but take me to an air and space museum, I will be there all day. That is my peace. My ground of peace right there is an air and space museum. I like particularly civilian aviation. I go nuts over that stuff. There's the Pima Air and Space Museum not far from you there in Tucson. I would spend entire days there when work is just nuts or I'm just not feeling it. I'm just in a weird spot. I go there and I learn about the new aircraft they have. I look at parts that I didn't look at before. I talk to the volunteers, the people there like that flew these planes during the wars. Like that is my happy time. And I've traveled back to Europe specifically to go to an air and space museum. Like that is what I do. That is my recuperate, relax, recover. That's it for me is aircraft.
I have yet to hear that answer. I am fascinated by it. It tells me so much about you, which I have to ask, when is your next venture to an air and space museum? Like, is that in your schedule? Do you have it looking forward to in the next couple of weeks? And when is the next one?
Definitely. So I'm actually back in Phoenix this week. So I fly in Wednesday evening, and we intentionally are flying back, or I'm intentionally flying back on Sunday morning, because Saturday afternoon I'm driving down to Tucson and I'm going to the Air and Space Museum. So that is very soon. That's when it's on the calendar.
That is so fascinating. So season 3 now, as we are having this conversation, season 1 and 2, I've heard a little bit of everything, right? From journaling to yoga to meditation to, hikes and walks in nature. You are the very first, Zac, and I applaud you because that tells me you know yourself, right? You're like, yeah, I'm not the mountains or the beach person, but you take me to air and space. That's my place.
Absolutely.
Really
And like if you end up with me, some people are super with it, some people aren't, but like I took my boyfriend there once and he was just like, "Wow, I don't care about aircraft. I love how excited you are and how you light up about aircraft, but
right.
I don't need to know about flaps. I don't need to know about rotation or, any of this stuff." And but yeah, that is my happy place, and I can spend all day at one of those by myself. Like just
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm really curious because I find when I travel, mostly international travel, Zac, I see things from a different perspective, a different lens. I see resources in ways I've never seen them before. I almost unlock innovation at a new level than I've been able to do in the grind, in the, just kind of the day-to-day that I tend to fall into. I don't subscribe to the hustle and grind mentality. I've shared this before that I'm still guilty of getting into that rhythm at time. And as soon as I see it, I try to get out of it. But I'm curious. So when you go to the air and space, does that help to unlock innovation for you as you're reading this? You're seeing new parts that you've not seen before. Then do you take that back to your work, to Nonprofits HQ, to your team, and say, "Look, what if we considered it this way? We've never thought of it this way before. What if we approach this issue, opportunity in this direction?" Is that how you're connecting dots as well?
Yeah, and that's like a really good call out because so for me, it's a trip to the Air and Space Museum, right? Where, the piece of equipment that I'm looking at, this aircraft right now, or maybe not even the full aircraft, maybe an engine, right? This piece of
Yeah.
equipment that I'm looking at took sometimes years of studying, experimenting, trying things, failing, moving forward
Yes.
before you actually had the product now that carries hundreds of people at a time above the clouds. Like that's insane.
Right.
And so
Right.
it gives you like when you think or step outside of what you see and what you do day to day, it gives you a new perspective on what it is that you're actually working on. So like we build software, right? And there's a lot of AI involved in what we build, but we build software, and there's a lot of parallels between building software and building airplanes, especially look at the flight automation systems and ILS and things like that are all very computer driven in aircraft, right? So there's a lot of parallels there, but I can focus on something that I really enjoy, and then concepts or larger concepts I can apply back to our work. And maybe that's something simple like a way to like cockpit or flight deck management is like a really big concern because takeoff and landing is the most dangerous part of any type of flight. And you have your flight crew doing a million different things, checklists, clicking buttons, getting clearance. And so managing those resources is a really big focus in the aviation industry. And you can take concepts like that back. We're not in a flight deck, we're in an office building in San Antonio. So if
Yeah.
we crash, it's going to be not a physical crash. But you can take those same concepts back to your office, and you can run efficiently while also considering the cost of context switching and the mental drain that a very scattered, very chaotic environment creates for your team. And it's like very long version, sorry, to answer your question, but yes, there's absolutely everything. No matter what you're doing, you can always take something back, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, back to your work when you come back from your recovery time.
Zac, we could nerd out for hours because as you were talking about takeoff and landing, I initially took that to onboarding and offboarding clients. What does that look like? What are the analogies? What is the standard operating procedures when it comes to takeoff and landing on an airplane? And then how are we managing that within our industry, within the clients that we get to work with? What are the similarities? What can we learn from various benchmarking, right? So maybe we do need to accompany you to this Air and Space Museum.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, believe it or not, our time is coming to a close. These conversations go so super fast. I love them. I hope they're bringing so much value to all of our listeners today. As we wrap up, Zac, I'm really curious to hear from you, like a final piece of advice of other individuals, doing good every day. Many of us have that kind of in our fiber of who we are in the sector. Is there any final words that you'd like to impart to our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to prioritize that, right? Prioritize doing good, whether it's for your work or for yourself in particular. You are super valuable to your company or to your products or whatever you're doing, which means in order to make forward progress and to contribute to what your company's goals are, you have to make sure that you're taking time for yourself, right? Work is always going to be there. You're not going to miss on an opportunity or something if you take a day for mental health, right? And so in order for you to really be in it for the long run and to give it your best and to do good every day, you have to take care of yourself physically and mentally. And you need to make that a priority.
Perfectly said. I couldn't have said it better. Well, for everyone listening, where can we find you, Zac, and also a little bit more about Nonprofits HQ?
Definitely. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there, and you can also visit our website, nonprofitshq.com/nonprofitnerd, and there's some details about the product and some discounts available for any organizations that may be interested in our platform.
Fantastic. Very generous of you, and a perfect safe landing. So thank you for all of this, Zac. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much for having us and for the opportunity to sponsor.